Yeah, I probably have a couple opinions for you, Paul. Yeah, I mean, I think so. First of all, I appreciate, again, I think getting a voice, getting some more
Yeah.
voices from the West, I think is important. I mean, you said it, right? The volume of teams, East Coast,
Yeah.
Ohio over, right? You could,
Yeah.
again, Chicago. I mean, again,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say the North is necessarily, again, you've seen University of Chicago there the last couple of
Yeah.
years, right? So you're seeing
Yeah.
some
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
parts. You're seeing, and I would
Redlands,
say,
Redlands is a vet was in the.
yeah.
I see those, but I keep expecting more. I don't know if that's right. You
And I
know.
think, yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple layers to it. And again, I'm a West guy, right? I played
Yeah.
Trinity, and we were in the West too, and
Yeah.
just it's it's a challenge, and some of it again is just it is volume, right? And so if you look at the breakdown of Division 3, I think it's what, 3 leagues on the West, right?
Yeah.
The California and Pacific Northwest, right? And
Yeah.
then the two Texas
Yeah.
leagues, right? So normally what happens, right? If you look at the historical data, normally only one of those West teams is they get paired together, right?
Yeah.
And then so yeah, only one kind of represents it. And
Yeah.
whether or not that's accurate in terms of volume, I think is tricky, right? And so, and I think you are asking, and again, I don't know if this is an excuse, and maybe it is, right? You are asking a lot of the West Coast teams, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, right, for example, like Redlands, I think was out at Connecticut College. I think
Yeah.
took them was like 1 minute to go when they scored the set
Yeah.
piece, right?
Yeah.
They're jumping on a flight from LA to Connecticut, right?
Yeah.
For me, the margins, right? And I wouldn't say Division 3 national tournament is the easiest setup, right? Because you play Saturday, Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And I think you're just, there's a volume component that plays into it for sure, but then you throw in just the challenges of travel. And I think of our
Yeah. Yeah.
2003 team that won the national championship, right? Like multiple flights, right? To
Yeah.
get so we're off to Atlanta for our first round games, right? Like
Yeah.
a high ranked team, and you're flying around the country, right? And you're just not having that same type
Yeah.
of travel, right? At
Yeah.
the in
And you're
New England.
probably not doing that during the regular season, right? Like during the regular season, you're on a bus, let's say, for the
I mean,
right.
you do some probably again, if you're out west, because where do you go, right? If you're not playing, if you're in California, you're having to probably fly to Texas to get to
Yeah.
and even you probably have to fly up to the Pacific Northwest for games. And so I think you have some preparation, but you're in a right? Like if you think about how physically and mentally draining
Training that
just
is.
a season is, and then you
Yeah.
throw in, okay, we're gonna fly out Thursday morning to play Saturday, right? And then you get through, right? And you're flying out Sunday night from and then you're back to campus on,
Yeah.
like it's just for me, it's a different challenge that I don't have a great solution there.
Yeah.
And my staff, I shared this question with my staff this morning, and I shared, so again, this is different, but in 2000, when I played, our field was deemed too narrow at the time. And so we were second in the country, had not lost a game, and they made us travel to Hardin-Simmons, right, to play
Oh
on
my gosh.
on a Wednesday, and snowed, right? So we got 4 inches of snow, couldn't play on Wednesday. Played Thursday back in San Antonio at a neutral site.
Mhm.
4 overtimes. That's when they used to have 4 overtimes. We won in the fourth overtime on a golden goal. Jumped on a flight Friday morning, right, and flew up to Oshkosh. Played Wheaton at 11 o'clock on Saturday because there was no lights.
Yeah.
Beat Wheaton, and then of course we lost to Oshkosh, to go on to the national quarterfinals. And so does that mean we're not a good team? Like it's just margins, right? Like it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
margins, and when you get to that elite level, those things. And I remember Coach McGinley at the time, and this is all after the fact, he said literally he looked at, and again, I was a junior at the time, he said he looked at the team that morning before we played Oshkosh, and he's like,
Mhm.
we have no chance, right? Like these guys can barely keep their eyes open,
Yeah.
and so and that Oshkosh team was very good. Scott Dioper was, National Player of the Year, and
Yeah.
and that's just that, that's a story for me that's probably a little bit exorbitant, but Thursday, Saturday, Sunday,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
all away from home,
Yeah.
Again, does it mean that, that 2000 Trinity team wasn't very good? I don't know, that for me, you're not going to hear those type of stories probably, in that way. And again, all the West teams play each other, right? Well, like the pod goes
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Netherlands and Trinity were in the same pod this past fall. So
Yeah.
only one of them's coming out just based on numbers.
Yeah.
Right. And so both with good historical, runs in the national tournament. And so again, I don't know the solution. Like Claremont was another team that was very strong. I mean, they didn't even make it in. They didn't even make it into the tournament. I think beat Redlands in the regular season, lost to them
in the
lost them in
tournament.
the finals, and
Yeah.
2 in the region and don't get in. Right. And so I don't know, is that, again, it's a volume, and it's a volume thing too, right? So is that the correct representation, of the teams from the West? I don't know the solution to it, but
Yeah.
I do think, and I appreciate you bringing this up, because I think some of these teams that you're talking about are high quality teams.
Yeah. I mean,
um,
the games I watched during the regular season, I mean, even teams that look, even record wise, they wouldn't have made the tournament anyhow. But I definitely thought Claremont should have been in.
for sure.
Yeah. I was so impressed with those guys. I think I watched the final against Redlands, and I thought they were a much better team than Redlands. Like just in terms of watching the two, pretty much not knowing much, right? Like I just watched the two play, and I was like, wow, Claremont is a really good team. And so how they don't make it. And again, I get the whole strength of schedule, but if you're I don't want to say limited, it's just not the right word, but if you don't have the ability to play, top 20 teams because they're all on the East Coast, not all of them, but a majority of them are on the East Coast, or closest one is Chicago or whatever. Like, who you can't, that's not the school's fault or not the team's fault, right? Like, so.
And and you use the word limit. I mean, I think there is some limitations, right? So like, how much are we, right? So again, if Redlands and Claremont haven't played strong teams, whatever we want to describe, so are they having to get on a flight and spend 15, 20 grand out of their budget to?
Is that what you're asking of them, right?
I mean, that's kind of what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
And so again, how do we? Again, I don't know. I don't have a great solution for it, but I do think those are some of the. I think that we don't create a narrative around it. We create a different narrative around it, which is, these teams aren't good enough to do it. But for me, and probably one of the things that when I came up here, right, up to the north, right, into the Midwest region, the understanding of, for me, like set pieces and that kind of really important part of the game was not something that was, I grew up as a young player. We never did set pieces. Like, it wasn't a thing. Like, and I would say is that a little bit of a South Texas, California, right? Real kind of ball oriented kind of soccer. I think 100% it is. But like I said in my earlier comments, right? If you can't handle that piece against those type of teams, it's been tricky. And I think, my evolution as a coach by coming up here was like, man, we just outplayed this team forever, and they ran 2 set plays.
Yeah, and they won.
And I'm like, we weren't organized well for that. I didn't watch that on film as much but now I always do, right? Yeah. And I've evolved to recognize how important that part of the game is, right? And if your team isn't organized in those 2 defensive set pieces and attacking set pieces, right, you could be out, right? And so that's been an evolution for me. But again, growing up in that culture, it really wasn't a big part of the game that we did. Like, or we just over the wall. That was great, right? But like, I don't ever remember as a youth player doing a set play. Like, it just wasn't a thing. It wasn't almost embedded in the culture and the philosophy of what I was taught. So
it was always the closest thing to a set play organization was the coach maybe made a decision as to who gets to kick it, right? Like, it's the person who's fouled gets to kick the ball.
Right, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
That's the extent of it.
So, but yeah, no, I think again, I appreciate, I'm sure lots of people will watch this and kind of maybe say there's like some sour grapes there, but
I think
Yeah, I mean, I just think there is some really high quality
Yeah.
teams that are coming out of the West. But again, they all kind of pot up into one, and so only one comes out, right? And so sometimes it's Redlands, sometimes it's Trinity, sometimes it's been, Mary Hardin Baylor, right? Like, it's been it's kind of been, but then there's only one team right there, and so again, the representation maybe isn't amazing. And so, and again, how do we change that? That's a whole nother.
That's a whole, No, I get that. I don't think it's sour grapes at all. I think, it's a reality that I think the West Coast teams do have to face and deal with. And, I get that the tournament is about getting the best teams, to me, right? Like the best top 64 teams or whatever, 62, whatever the number is, to start playing each other in this World Cup style tournament, right? Like, one and out. And if that is the case, I can think of probably 6 or 7 teams out in the West Coast that I think, from a soccer perspective, could easily lay claim to that, right? That they're the best teams in the country. And I'm not just saying, in this case, Redlands and Trinity, right? I mean, I think, like I said, Claremont was really good. I don't think their record was good too. Like, they can't dismiss them there.
And the Northwest, the Northwest League,
Northwestern teams.
Whitworth has done well. Puget Sound has a great history, right? Pacific Lutheran.
There's another one. I'm like, what
results? So, and they're good play. I mean, some of the kids that are going to these places are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And great. Phenomenal coaches like Ralph Perez at Redlands. I mean, a resume, right? Well, he's got about to have one of the best resumes in coaching in Division III for sure.
Yeah.
I think he's on staff with the World Cup team and
national team. He's not a
I can only dream of that, right? So I watched that, right? That was he was there. I watched it, So there's the the difference in our quality. So, but
I'm gonna keep looking into this because it really does intrigue me. I mean, especially over the last 20 years, right? Like, there's something. I don't know. Maybe it's me, the idealistic one, right? Like, it's hard for me to think that so few teams can dominate so much.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned it, like there's just challenges, right? So like winning it is so hard.
I get that.
You throw like 4 more challenges in. Right. And again, does that make it? Again, it sounds like I'm saying like it's easy to win it. I'm not saying that, but it's is there more challenges for teams in the West? I don't know. Like, it seems that way, right? It seems like a flight across the country is different than what somebody else has to do, drive 45 minutes to the quarterfinal event. I don't know. Like, for me, that's hard, right? Again, it's just another challenge, right? So if this team has 5 challenges and this team has 10 challenges, does it mean that one team can overcome those 10? Maybe, right? But it's another one to deal with.